Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the 143. We are your favorite podcast under review, coming at you live.
We've got probably one of the worst Super Bowl matchups. Just kidding, not really. But one where it's, you've all seen that clip on Twitter from The Dark Knight Rises whenever he's returning the kick and the stadium's exploding and everyone's like, this is what America wants in the Super Bowl. Right here, raise my hand. But if I had to root for someone, gun to my head, I'm going for the Chiefs because I couldn't stand an Eagles Super Bowl. But this is the reality we live in.
Actually, yeah, let me address that before we even get started with our stat of the week. All right. If you call yourself a Cowboys fan, I don't care how much you don't want to see a three-peat. I don't care how much you don't like the Chiefs. If you call yourself a Cowboys fan, you better be rooting against the Eagles. Or boycott the Super Bowl, but it better not be you're rooting for the Eagles so you don't see a Chiefs win. Even Nick here, who can't stand the Chiefs, gets it.
Yeah, I mean, as a Cowboys fan, you can't be rooting for the Eagles. I don't care.
You just can't.
I don't care the circumstances. It's just not how it works.
Let's dive into it. Stat of the week brought to you by our sponsor, Andrews Logistics. Congratulations to Drake May. First Pro Bowl appearance, rookie quarterback. He's going to the Pro Bowl. And I only highlight this stat as our stat of the week to tell y'all how much of a joke the Pro Bowl has become.
It has become so worthless over the last couple seasons.
He's like the fifth or sixth alternate.
Such a joke.
I want to say it's like Joe Burrow, him, and one of their Lamar like turned it down. I think there's one other quarterback who is kind of a head scratcher going. But at the quarterback position, they'll get down to the 15th guy because all the quarterbacks are too good for the Pro Bowl now. So
everyone's just declining.
Congrats to Drake May for just being next in line on the list of alternates, but he's going to the Pro Bowl.
Good for him. Player of the week, I went with Xavier Worthy, rookie, showing out on the big stage, 6 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown.
Got some revenge.
Love to see it. And then after the game, he was saying he was kind of throwing some shade at the Bills because the Bills passed up on him, and he was like, "Well, they shouldn't have passed up on me."
No, they traded him.
That's right. They traded the pick or whatever, and the Chiefs used that pick to draft Xavier Worthy, and
good pick for them.
Said that's their loss, and I guess so.
But as we've seen, pretty much any receiver works in their system. Since Tyreek left, there really hasn't been a number one guy other than Travis Kelce. So they've really made that work over there in Kansas City, and that says a lot about Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, as we're about to talk about here. So let's dive into it. Let's very briefly, talk about how Washington just dropped the ball literally against the Philadelphia Eagles. 3 turnovers to none will always lose you a playoff game.
Yeah, it was a completely different Washington team that we saw.
Which we figured would happen.
Right. We were talking about it the week before where it's just they got to remember how to play football, and they kind of forgot. And fumbles played a huge part in this game. And then it was close at halftime. And then, Washington just got the doors blown off of them. Eagles rush attack was just going right down their throat. Saquon was doing his thing. They had no answer. Jalen even threw for a couple yards, which was surprising to see. But I think the rush they had their way with them on Sunday, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I think Nick and I said something about how Saquon's the focal point of their offense, and if you can stop Saquon, put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands, you can really do some damage to this Philly offense. And first play, the Commanders let Saquon take the ball for a 60-yard rushing touchdown. And that pretty much just set the tone for the game, because if you give Philly the lead, they're going to run with it with Saquon. And when you're letting Saquon do whatever he wants, it opens the passing game up for Jalen Hurts. And I think we saw a little bit of when Washington got pressure on him, he wasn't as great. That's the thing with Jalen Hurts. But if you give him time in the pocket behind that great offensive line they have the best offensive line in football. He makes things happen. I mean, he's a quarterback in the NFL. He should be completing passes when he has, 20 seconds to throw,
Right.
standing in the pocket. And for some reason, they kept putting Marshawn Lattimore one-on-one with A.J. Brown. So, I mean, that's a no-brainer. Marshawn Lattimore is awful at football, and that's been clear in every game that they've played
And,
so far.
Everyone knows that you lose the turnover battle. I mean, 9 times out of 10, you're going to lose the game.
So
Jane Daniels led a touchdown drive, made it 12-14, and then the next time he touched the ball, it was 12-27. And so, you're not going to win games like that.
these were boneheaded fumbles too. I mean, the ball should not have been coming out. And we won't go into each fumble because I don't care enough at this point. But it's just, I mean, it was the turnover battle that lost them the game because it's 3 fumbles and it was 3 touchdowns for the Eagles and some garbage time scores at the end. But surprising season from the Commanders. Dan Quinn, Jaden Daniels, Cliff Kingsbury, just the whole team in general. Completely different Washington team than we're used to seeing. So I think, it's only up from here for them.
Yeah, still went to the NFC Championship despite, getting blasted. But, there's a lot to hang your hat on for this one. Hopefully this is your franchise quarterback and Jaden Daniels having one of the best rookie seasons we've seen in a long time. Yep. Some people are saying ever.
Quinn comes. If he had won, I would say ever.
Dan Quinn comes in his first year. And, everybody comes in and completely flips around the Washington Commanders, trajectory. They were a bottom tier team for so long that wasn't ever competing for a playoff spot. And now they're playing in the NFC Championship. So who knows what the future holds.
Yeah. And it's going to be Philly and Washington battling it out for the NFC East for a long time. As the Cowboys and the Giants will not be a part of that conversation for the next few years. So, congrats to them on a season well fought. Obviously, they wish they could have had that one back, and so does America. But, Philly's going to the Super Bowl. We'll talk a lot more about the Super Bowl matchup itself next week, obviously in our Super Bowl preview episode that we have every year. But in terms of the game, just not a great NFC Championship game. And Washington just got run over and, like we said, dropped the ball.
They were just behind very early on in the game, and they just could not.
And I thought Jaden Daniels played a good game. It just wasn't on him. It was really on their defense, but mostly on just dropping the ball in crucial moments.
Making a couple boneheaded mistakes that, in games like that, it's going to cost you.
They get the ball 20-12, 1 minute, 30 seconds left in the second half. Philly gets the ball to start the third quarter, so they really need to go down and put some points up. Fumble the kickoff just by running into a guy. Instead, Philly gets the ball on their own 20. They go score. Jaden Daniels still leads a drive downfield with 30 seconds to kick a field goal. But, you can't. You just basically handed him another touchdown with that fumble. And couldn't really come back from that. So Philly's going to the Super Bowl, unfortunately. I do think it's sad that they didn't get to play the Lions. Detroit really turnover. Same thing against Washington, like we talked about. I think maybe a Lions-Eagles game would have been a little bit.
I was going to say, I think Detroit would have matched up a little bit better, but that's on Detroit for not coming prepared the week before.
So if they did that against Philly, they still wouldn't have won. But on to the more exciting game and the bigger controversy, just – Chiefs, nobody likes them right now. Nobody wants to see them win because the Chiefs have been winning. We saw it with the Patriots. You see it with, teams that have been good for a while. People want to see something else. They want to see Josh Allen in the Super Bowl. Josh Allen, who everybody loves, he's worked hard. Just a Bills team with a great fan base. A Bills-Eagles Super Bowl would have been kind of cool because it's the good guys versus the bad guys, basically. But kind of like what Nick and I have been saying all season long is Josh Allen has been playing good, but it all comes down to the game against the Chiefs. And can he beat the Chiefs? and the Bills did not beat the Chiefs. That's what we're going to really dive into. So,
I mean, yeah, we talked about it. I think I even said maybe last week or the week before where, people are saying this Bills team feels different, but it's
really
like,
didn't.
it's not. It's the same Bills team we see every week.
Yep.
Or every year, I'm sorry. And, credit to the Bills, though. They'll be back, but they're not going to win.
Yeah, I don't see him winning either.
They'll be back in this position, but I don't think they're going to overcome that hurdle.
Yeah, I think some really key factors that lost in the game. Obviously, at the very end of the game, all this whining and complaining about this 4th down call from the refs with like 13 minutes left in the 4th quarter. In my opinion, there was not enough to overturn the call. Whatever, get into the controversy. We can go either way about that. But they did get the ball twice more, win the game. And they got the ball with 3 minutes left, 3:30, I think, left in the game, down by 3. And I think any Bills fan, if you tell them, would you rather the Chiefs have the ball down 3 with 3 minutes left or Josh Allen to have the ball, they would choose Josh Allen. I think when you have a generational talent like that, that's what you want. You want your guy to have the ball at the end with a chance to either tie or win the game. And at the end of the day, Dalton Kincaid missed that throw, and he definitely should have caught it, but they had 3 more downs before that. And I think the problem with this game is the Chiefs were the Bills were a little too nonchalant. Once they got a lead, they just started handing the ball off like this game was kind of over and they could run the clock out.
Mm-hmm.
And they had 23rd and 4th downs to the Chiefs' 10. And on a lot of those 3rd and 4th downs, they tried to tush push, and it just wasn't working.
It was the same when it was 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. It was the same play every single time.
2-point conversion, same thing. And the Chiefs were ready for it. You got to give them a ton of credit, and it didn't work. And they just kept calling it. So I think a lot of the offensive stuff in this game was on the offensive coordinator for calling some just pretty basic plays. And then a lot of it was just handoff. I mean, like trying to run the clock out.
Shout out to Mac Hollins. He hadn't really played that big of a factor in the regular season, but he comes out and has, the game of his life when it mattered the most. Obviously wasn't enough. It's been the season of tight ends. It was Mark Andrews last week dropping the 2-point conversion, and then this week it was Dalton Kincaid. I mean, it was a great play by Josh Allen. The O-line got absolutely bull rushed, and he's just running straight backwards. Lobs it up in the air. It looks like it's in air for like 10 seconds.
I think Dalton Kincaid could have gotten in a better spot.
I was going to say, and it looks like it was a little bit behind him, but the ball was in the air for so long, he should have been able to adjust and come back to it, but I guess he misread it.
He still should have caught it in the angle he had on it.
It was still right in the breadbasket, but
which I'm sure he's kicking himself for that one.
I was going to say that's one that's going to stick with you for a while because that would have flipped the field too in that situation. And so they would have been in field goal range or like 10 yards away at the very least. Mm-hmm. But, Josh Allen has just always struggled against the Chiefs. It comes down to it every single year for the Bills.
A lot of people are saying, I don't think, obviously the loss isn't all on Josh Allen, but I don't think he played that great in this game. He was missing a lot of throws towards the end when he needed to make them. And again, the play calling was just atrocious from the Bills from an offensive standpoint. And then the Bills really don't have anybody in their secondary, if you think about it. So their secondary was just getting cooked by every receiver. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster had a nice game. Xavier Worthy, like we said earlier, player of the week, had a good game. I guess they kept Travis Kelce contained for the most part, but then by focusing on him, they left everybody else open to kind of do whatever they wanted. And then Patrick Mahomes we've seen him use his legs when he has to. I just don't think this was a great game, greatly called game by the coaches of the Bills. And a lot of people want Sean McDermott fired. I don't know. I don't know anything about that, but I think this was a lot on the offensive coordinator.
I think with who's available and what Sean McDermott's done, yeah, he's never been able to get over the hump, but what's out there and available, I think he's the best option.
Yeah.
I would definitely look at the offensive coordinator position first, but
And get Josh Allen some receivers.
I was going to say get him some real weapons. I mean,
You kind of gave him nothing this year.
He did a great job with what he had in the regular season.
That's why he deserves the MVP, by the way.
But in these big games, you need to have a true star-studded number one that you can lean on, because that's who's going to come alive and, on the big moments in games like these. And you just kind of left him with a bunch of wide receiver threes and a couple wide receiver twos,
Saw it last week against the Ravens, too. They got up and they got complacent and they let the Ravens claw their way back. And thanks to Mark Andrews, that didn't really come back to bite them in the end. This time, they got a 1-point lead, and they kind of acted like they had a 2-score lead. And a 1-point lead in the NFL is basically a tie to where, like, one score, any kind of score can flip the game. Right. You're just at that point depending on your defense to just shut the other team out. And, like we said, they just proceeded to do short little dink and duck handoffs. Like, it just it wasn't the right game plan. And now that we've dissected all that, we can get into the calls. Nick, what do you think about those calls?
It's definitely interesting.
Why don't you tell us how you feel?
I mean, there's definitely a lot of them, but obviously we can't really touch on all of them. I do think the big one is the 4th and 1 that was spotted short, and then they reviewed it and said it was still short, and the Chiefs got the ball, went down and scored. Obviously, that one kind of sticks with you a little bit, because that one would have either continued the drive for the Bills, or it ended up with the Chiefs going down and scoring points. The other one was later in the game. Patrick Mahomes throws one up and at like the 5 or whatever, and the Bills come up with it, it looks like, and then as he's going to the ground, it looks like the ball hits the ground maybe, but then they rule it a catch for the Chiefs. I thought it was either an interception or incomplete at the very, very least, but I guess that was a big one, and I feel like there's a third one that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head.
I feel like there's a third one too, but those were the 2 biggest ones.
I think those were the 2 biggest ones that you meet, just because those ended with points for the Chiefs.
In my opinion, the worthy catch was more of a controversial one than the 4th and 1. I think the 4th and 1, you couldn't even see the ball on the replay. You could see Josh Allen's helmet was across the line, but there was no ball that you could see. When do they ever overturn those?
The big thing was you had 2 refs where the ref that had Josh Allen's back facing him runs in and rules it short, but he can't even see the ball. And then the ref up top, which is facing Josh Allen, can see the ball. He comes in and spots it a yard ahead. And so you kind of have 2 different, perspectives there, and they just ruled it short. I mean, I don't know. I thought, because it looked like like to me on TV was that he had it just at his mid chest, and it looked like his numbers were just barely across the line.
Again, though, it wasn't at the end of the game, so they did still. I mean, I think at the end of the day, the Bills had the ball with 3.5 minutes left, and could have done whatever they needed to do to win the game or take the lead or tie it, and they didn't get it done in the end. And there were a lot of miscues on the Bills side. They didn't play a great game.
I mean, even at the end of the day, they were still in a position where they should have let a game-winning touchdown drive or field goal to tie the game. They were in a position where they still could have won despite all that, but when it came down to it, they couldn't get down the field.
And we're not going to say we told you so about Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, but we kind of did. So it's not Josh Allen against Patrick Mahomes, but Josh Allen has not been able to beat the Chiefs defense. And that's not all on him. Obviously, Kincaid, Stephon Diggs last year. I mean, you have guys that are, Tyler Bassett missed a kick before that's really affected it. I mean, the Bills just in general have not been able to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. And unfortunately for Josh Allen, that's going to be his narrative until he can. And I still think even if they do beat the Chiefs, they have to win the Super Bowl for that narrative to go away.
Because it's just happened too many times where the Chiefs will win and then they'll obviously go on and win the Super Bowl. But you do hope.
Hard-fought game.
Yeah. Was a great game. Really,
we were
really
just
good
hoping
game
for a
the
good game
evening.
after the NFC Championship that we witnessed. I got something to say for all the people acting like you're going to boycott the Super Bowl. You're not boycotting the Super Bowl. You're going to watch the Super Bowl. None of us believe you. Okay. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter if you don't like either team and it's the Super Bowl. If you're a football fan, this is the biggest
game
football game of the year.
Yeah.
And even for all you college football lovers, like we like college football, but the Super Bowl is bigger than any college football game there is. I mean, this is the game right here. So,
I mean, this is it.
You want to boycott it, you can boycott it, but I don't believe
No one
anybody's
believes
actually
you.
boycotting it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, Chiefs Eagles in the Super Bowl next week. We'll really dive into the matchup, but we got it again. Obviously, we would really love for the Eagles not to be there because I'd like to watch the Super Bowl without a dog in the fight. Unfortunately, we have to root against the Eagles and really care about the game now.
It was kind of going to go either way because you had Commanders, Eagles in the NFC Championship. So it was going to come down to the AFC.
Yep.
But here's like to end our shows on Under Review. I brought you a quote from the Andy Reid, and he said, "All these games are gut-wrenching, and I've got a lot of gut to wrench."
That he does. Chiefs are really good in these one-score games. And maybe one of these days we'll be talking about the Cowboys making it to the Super Bowl. Maybe
when
next
we're
year.
85?
Maybe. Or maybe next year. You never know.
Definitely not.
All right. Well, thank y'all for tuning in this week. And we'll see you next week with another episode of Under Review.